Hi, it's Scott Allen with my thoughts on this week's rugby. Let's have a look at the difference between the All Blacks and the Wallabies attacking patterns. The All Blacks essentially have two base attacking patterns. Both rely on players maintaining width, so they've got options all the way across the field. The first, which I'll call the wide pattern, relies on a combination of forwards and backs spreading across the field so the ball can be moved from one side to the other, stretching the defence, looking for mismatches, which players are trained to take advantage of. Here's an example. With Dag taking the ball back after receiving the kick, the other All Blacks have worked back so they've got width all the way across to the far side of the ruck. They can stretch the defence right to the touchline. You can see that as the All Blacks take the ball on further towards the touchline, there's already a line starting to form on the inside of the ruck, so they're ready to come back across to this side of the field. You can see here as the ball comes back to this side of the field, they've got a really good shape, good width. Forwards and backs working to get the ball wide. They're stretching the Irish defence, and even if they don't get payback on this phase, that's going to start to run the Irish off their feet, and opportunities will come up over the next couple of phases. As the shot pans out here, you'll see the great width they've achieved. They've got a line of forwards ready to take the ball up front, or the ball can go out the back to a very wide line that stretches all the way across to the touchline, which is the way they play. And you can see that the Irish are short on numbers simply because the All Blacks have used that pattern really well. The second base pattern the All Blacks use is what I'll call the punch wide pattern. So the first phases in this pattern are punched to the posts by the forwards. The All Blacks use this more than any other pattern, and it generally is used when things break down or when they want to set up to go into their wide pattern. The purpose of this pattern is to draw defenders into the middle of the field and give the All Blacks time to set up options on both sides of the ruck. Then they can use the ball on whichever side of the ruck offers the most opportunity. As I say, this is probably the default pattern for the All Blacks. They'll punch the ball into the middle of the field and then they'll move it wide to the sideline. That sets them up to then come back the other way using their wide pattern. Next time you see the All Blacks playing, just keep a note of how many times you see Dan Carter throwing a long pass, or there's two passes to get the forwards into the middle of the field to set up that punch. Now to the Wallabies, where it's much harder to find any sort of pattern in their attack. Here's their first phase after a line-out steal against Wales. The ball's taken into midfield by Genia, and then the Wallabies have got width on both sides of the ruck. The shape's looking not too bad at this stage. But as we go through the next phase, you'll see all of the forwards are basically following the ball rather than anybody staying on this side of the field to hold some width. Compare that to what you saw the All Blacks doing in the previous clip. When Genia looks up now for an option to bring the ball back across this side of the field, the entire Wallabies team is within 30 metres of the sideline. That's making it very easy for the Welsh to defend. On this next phase, there are players on both sides of the ruck, but the forwards on the far side of the ruck haven't got themselves into any sort of shape, and they're not really presenting as an option that Wales have to defend. On this side of the ruck, Barnes has only got one player outside him, which the Welsh have got covered. So he does the only thing he can do, turns the ball back into the pack of forwards standing in midfield. On this next phase, the ball's moved to the far touchline, which opens up the whole width of the field for the Wallabies to play in. But as you can see, as the shot widens out, again, all of the Wallabies are within 30 metres of the touchline, and that makes it very easy for the Welsh to defend. As the shot widens out here, you can see the Wallabies have got a little bit more width and they've got a much better shape to attack with. But they attack straight through the centre of the field. That leaves them with half of the field to attack with on this near side of the ruck. But the only player that works his way around is David Pocock. You can see far too many forwards standing on the far side of the ruck who haven't made the effort to come around the corner and support him. On the next phase, the Wallabies again play through the midfield, which is fine, but you then need to generate quick ball and have options on either side of the ruck to attack with and to stretch the defence. But as you can see here, the Wallabies have only got 3 players on the far side of the ruck and only 2 on the near side of the ruck. Now this is only 30 minutes into the test match, but already there are far too many players walking. There's no urgency to realign quickly and offer Genia some options, so he has to slow the ball down until he's got options ready. Whilst players are slowly realigning to offer some options on the far side of the ruck, there's nothing being offered on this near side of the ruck, so Wales know which way the ball's going to go, which makes it much easier for them to defend. Barnes knows there's nothing on the far side of the ruck, so he's telling Genia to send it back to the forwards, who take their time realigning. Once again, Genia has to slow the delivery down until the forwards are ready. When Genia looks for options from this ruck, the forwards are bunched, there's really not much on. Sharp's the only forward on the near side of the ruck, and Higginbotham's the only one who shows any urgency to get there and support him on this side of the ruck. Once again, the Wallabies are very narrow in attack with most players on the far side of the ruck, but they still take the option to come down a very short side where the Welsh have got plenty of numbers, again very easy to defend. Tatafu punches the ball forward, but because he's got no supporters with him, he knows Warburton's going to be a threat at the breakdown. He throws the ball out the back, and when it goes to ground, it disrupts any flow the Wallabies had. Understandably, the Wallabies have now got to reset their attack. The good news is they've got options on both sides of the ruck, and they've got a fair bit of width in their attack. You can see they've got players stretched all the way to the far touchline. The forwards punch the ball forward one more time, and with quick ball the option is now on to move the ball wide. But Barnes turns it back in through the middle where the majority of the forwards are, and the majority of the Welsh defence is. That's fine, because the Wallabies have still got options on both sides of the ruck. Unfortunately, when Pocock receives the ball on the near side, none of the other forwards have made the effort to support him, and he's dominated at the ruck. That slows the Wallabies' ball down again. Now with slow ball, and all of the Wallabies on the far side of the ruck, they realise they've got to realign to offer Genia some options. But the speed of realignment and the indecision as to who should go where is really poor. After the forwards take an eternity to get realigned, Genia decides to try the short side. But the Welsh have had plenty of time to set up for that option and defend it easily. After 19 phases of fairly uninspiring attack, it's a very soft turnover by the Wallabies. If these are the sort of attack patterns the Wallabies are going to use against the All Blacks, it's not going to be much of a contest.